Good morning, Horizon. It's Tuesday, and we're now looking at the second part of Psalm 25, remembering that this again was written so that you could memorize it, keep it before you. We've gone through 1 through 7, and now I'm going to read verses 8 through 14. Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he instructs sinners in his way. He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. All the ways of the Lord are loving and faithful towards those who keep the demands of his covenant. For the sake of your name, forgive my iniquity, though it is great. Who then are those who fear the Lord? He will instruct them in the way they should choose. They will spend their days in prosperity, and their descendants will inherit the land. The Lord confides in those who fear him. He makes his covenant known to them. My eyes are ever on the Lord, for only he will release my feet from the snare. So we remember the first part of this psalm. He was entrusting himself to God and asking God for him to show him how to walk on the path in God's ways. Now the shift goes to specifically to God, away from his life and living kind of in a certain way towards the God who's entrusted himself to. Good and upright is the Lord, he says. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore, he instructs sinners in his ways. What jumped out of me at this section this morning was it's pretty powerful. You and I tend to think about God's holiness and his righteousness and his character, and like he's putting up, and he forgives. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know, it's almost reticently he forgives. What this shows me is it's actually because of God's goodness. His goodness causes him to forgive. He doesn't do it kind of like, oh, my hand is forced. His goodness makes you lean into us, so that as we take this posture of humility and recognizing where we need help and where we've failed, his goodness, it's his delight to forgiveness. Have you ever thought about God's delight, his goodness being involved in his forgiveness? I also love in this passage this focus on humility, about guiding the humble in what is right. Humility is this place, it's just, first of all, it's no longer a public virtue. You're actually looked down if you're humble. It's never taught, it's not really modeled in our leadership anymore, but the scriptures hold a real place for humility. Humility is that heart position where you say, I don't know better than you, God. I need you to teach me. You are wise, I am not. You are good. I want to learn to be good. You are strong. Let me grow into this. So humility is this posture of now coming to God and saying, would you please teach me? I want to grow into something else than I am right now. That humility in this psalm positions us to receive then from God. And here are the things that the promises for those humble. He guides the humble right. Here's what it says. Who then are those who fear the Lord? Here's what happens. Those who fear, those who look to God for instruction, those who humble themselves for them. Here's what it promises. He'll instruct them in the ways they should choose. They'll spend their days in prosperity, and the Lord will confide in them. Now, I got to tell you, the God of all of eternity seems to be committing, as we humble ourselves before him, to instruct us in the ways that we should choose. Is there not a better day than right now that we need God to instruct us as to the kinds of choices we need to make? I love as well that there's this promise of coming into this place of flourishing. God's life, God's ways produce flourishing. And the last thing is really intimate. He confides in those who fear him. I don't know about you, but when I think about confiding, it's an intimate act. It's a trusting, it's a sharing the deepest thoughts and feelings. You confide those things, your deepest thoughts and feelings. There's this intimacy that portrayed as we humble ourselves, that God shares his thoughts and feelings to us. So then, what would the prayer be from this section? I'm going to suggest it's the last one. My eyes are ever on the Lord, for only he will release my feet from the snare. Something about positioning our hearts to only my eyes being on God alone, and he helps me avoid snares. Grace and peace to you. I hope it's a great day this Tuesday.